This is Unmasked.
Huh?
I forgot to hit record.
No.
I was about to check the levels and like, oh, where are the levels? And there's nothing on the screen. And okay, technical errors.
Okay, where are we gonna start?
We just went like a whole thing on all that with podcasts.
We'll get back.
I'm a little rusty with this. When I first started doing the podcast and stuff,
Yeah.
I was like pedal to the metal. It's usually how I am with projects. I'm like, I'm obsessive. I'm tunnel visioned. I'm like, okay, this is all I want to do and stuff. I did that. I've had this podcast for a year and a half almost now.
Yeah.
I'm 40-something episodes in, so I was doing really good. But then ADHD kicks in, and I'm like, shiny object syndrome. I go and find these other things, and I'm like, okay, I want to pursue this. I want to pursue that.
Yeah, no,
and
actually.
then other things kind of slow down. But the podcast is something that I have a huge passion for. I love being able to connect with people. I love being able to talk to people, especially the niche that I'm in. So, but with that, this is all one-man show. And with that means I have to learn how to do everything. There's no producer behind the scenes. There's no, like, you came in, it's literally, you've just met me. There's no side person that's like, okay, you're good over here. There's no sound check person. Everything, like, this is a portable setup too. I'm sure that they see the video.
They didn't hear our conversation earlier.
No, they didn't hear. Now we are officially recording. I've done that a couple times. Usually I'm good about catching within like the first 5 minutes because I'm like, okay, but I'm like, you're talking. I want to make sure that I'm looking at you and not like while you're talking looking down here because then it can look really weird. But kind of digressing to what we were talking about earlier when we didn't know we weren't being recorded.
I'm like, where do we start now?
So we'll skip all the previous podcast stuff. I know you said you wanted to start a podcast, but we'll kind of skip over all of that.
Yeah, me wanting to start a podcast doesn't matter anymore. He didn't hit record.
Yeah, this is your sign. Not I'm kidding. No.
If this is your sign.
We were kind of talking about the definition of influencers.
Yeah.
And with social media, I feel like it's very difficult to define an influencer now because you were saying I don't have 100,000 followers, therefore I'm an influencer. For me, I don't even have 2,000 followers, but followers these days doesn't matter. I can go on right now and go through even my followers or people I'm following. They can have 50, 100, 250,000 followers. Does not mean, though, that they have any influence on the general public or that they're any kind of celebrity status. There's so many people that buy their following, and that's why you have to go through their engagement, see what kind of engagement they have. For you, you're one of the few that, like, your following matches the engagement that you have. You post these videos that get a lot of views. You have all this. So,
I have a very loyal following. I will say that.
Like, you actually have an authentic following. It's not like you didn't pay for all these people to come follow you and stuff. The people that follow you know why they're following you. You've posted anything from dancing videos like country swing, line dancing, that kind of stuff, to transformations about yourself. You look like your 20s to 30s, I'm assuming.
I'm 29.
29, okay. So, and a lot of people are like, oh, there's not really a whole lot of transformation that can happen in your 20s or something.
Oh, wow.
I've heard different sides of the spectrum to where like the 20s are your biggest transformation. Other times it's like, well, you've lived 2 decades. How much transformation can happen?
I think it also depends on your upbringing.
Yeah.
I think if you have a very gentle background, you have parents that have been married in this perfect kind of child upbringing, then it may be at your 30s and your 40s where you start to experience life. And not to take this offensively or anything like that, but maybe in your 20s you were babied.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the stage where I feel like a lot of grit in your life can be built. Whenever you don't have anyone to lean on like that. So I think it's perspectively like how somebody is raised, and that kind of determines when they're going to go through that stage of growth and everything.
I definitely completely agree. I'm curious specifically on your story of the transformation that you've gone through, because you mentioned kind of like what your upbringing is. I know personally for me, those who have kind of followed along my story. Anyway, back to the regular scheduled programming. Like with my story, I don't want to say I had a shitty upbringing, but I definitely had one to where the evolution of my life had to change very quickly. There's something about you that kind of strikes me as someone who also kind of had to grow up quickly or had to transform in a drastic way for the better. So I know you were mentioning something about marriage and divorce. I want to hear your story, though. I want to hear kind of this transformation.
So basically ended up getting divorced, like we were talking about earlier. And one of the only things I knew to do at the time was to go dancing when I didn't have my daughters, because I didn't want to go home to an empty home. And at the time, I was heavily pursuing fitness. What ended up happening with that is basically I started to get to know people in the dance scene. I started posting like dance content on my fitness page, but that was messing up my algorithms really, really bad. And it was kind of like taking over my gym page. And so I decided I'm going to create 2 separate pages for my niches, 2 separate TikToks for my niches. That way dance was just supposed to be my for fun thing. It was never supposed to be the thing that kind of blew me up. Yeah, it was supposed to be fitness, because I was pushing 10K on my fitness account. I had on my fitness TikTok, I had like 60,000 followers, which everyone was like, wow, like this is a fitness girl. And
60,000
on my fitness page at the time.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was already...
on the TikTok. So the Instagram
TikTok.
had almost 10K, and then the TikTok had 60K, which TikTok is TikTok, right?
Yeah.
I don't really, So I used to love it so much, and now I hate it so much.
It's changed so much. Like
I used to
people,
make good money off TikTok.
Yeah, some people can blow up and make like
I was making
thousands.
like $600 a month at one point on TikTok.
And this is like before Shop and stuff, right?
This is before they changed everything on there and how you get your payouts. They sent me a message the other day, and they're like, oh, we paid you $1.54. Enjoy. I was like, the audacity.
What was the pay for at that time?
I don't remember how they did it, but I know I was in the creator fund, the old creator fund.
You know what it was, actually? I remember back when they were first introducing the pay for TikTok. What it was it was based on qualified views. So say you upload a video, and in the first 24 hours, it gets 1 million hits. 24 hours after that, it starts to bump up to 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. Your qualified views are that first 1 million, which is what you're paid on. And the CPR or CPM for that is so much lower. Like, it's YouTube versus something like TikTok. Their CPMs are very different. With YouTube, you're looking at probably anywhere from 50 cents to $1 or something, depending on the type of content you're posting and stuff. So a creator that's getting like 15,000 views per video on YouTube, their CPM is much higher, so they're still going to be able to make that much more money. And all of the views on YouTube are qualified views, not just the first 24 hours. But I think because of the way that TikTok is made to where it just throws videos at you, you don't have to click into videos or anything like that. They make it to where like the first million is the qualified.
Now it's so different. Like, you have to be like talking on the TikTok for at least a minute and like all this stuff, and it's just like,
really,
yeah.
Well, they have like the shop now and stuff to where like
I should get into that, but I just like, you have to buy it first.
There's ways to do it without buying it.
I hate TikTok so much.
I know. It's like the blessing, but it's also the curse. Like, some people can blow up for no reason and get just like, there's I don't know if you've seen the guy like the trash driver that eats lettuce.
What?
Yeah, like literally he'll go on his trash routes, he'll stop, and for his lunch break he'll get a head of iceberg lettuce and maybe put like rotisserie chicken or ranch or something on it.
A salad.
It's like a salad, but not like in a bowl. He just chomps into the head of iceberg lettuce, and you can like hear that, so it's like ASMR mixed with...
I love ASMR videos though, I'm not gonna lie. I get stuck on ASMR TikTok all the time.
I hate the ones that are just mouth sounds though, like the ones that I'll click into and it's like girls is like I'm like,
Or
"Please
just like,
stop." Yeah. But like this guy, not only is he kind of funny and like talks to the people, it's also like the ASMR, but like he's just like one of those like genuinely cool human beings. But he literally blew up for the fact of just eating iceberg lettuce
yeah.
on this thing. And you wouldn't think that would blow up, but he has millions of followers now. He's getting like probably double the amount of salary from TikTok than from his government job. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it could ever overtake like something like YouTube.
Yeah. I never got into YouTube. That was just too much. But anyways.
Sorry.
But no, you're good. You're good. I'm like, we're circling back.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to, I separated out my niches, and kind of what happened, how I kind of started on the start of my downward spiral, but not fully. Everyone in the dance scene started referring to me as like a hot mom or a MILF.
Okay.
Okay.
Did that bother you at all?
Actually, yes, it did at first. And then I just decided to own it as I downward spiraled more. Okay. Because I would have people commenting on my body because I was a gym girl. Like if I wore a crop top, they would dip me and they'd be like, oh my gosh, like you have abs. Like this one guy, I'm not going to name his name, but he gave me the nickname when I first came around the dance scene. And it was actually really embarrassing because like I didn't know anyone and I'm here to like make friends because I just went through a divorce. Like I'm not looking for anything with anyone.
Right.
And this was before like when I had a faith life, but not like I have now. Like I had a little bit of faith, but then you go through this divorce and you're just in this transitional season. But he called me the Energizer Bunny, aka AAA, abs, ass, and attitude, because I was sassy every time he would make a comment about my body. And it would actually aggravate me, but it wouldn't to a point, like I'm not gonna yell at you like I'm an adult. Yeah. But I'd be like, why are you acting that way? And like you have to understand in the dance scene, like you're at bars where people are drinking even if you're not. So people are gonna act a fool. So what ended up happening is it got to a point where I just like owned it. I was like, okay, like I guess like I'm just like a hot mom. Like here we go. And then the dance group that I was around started making these shirts, and everyone got sayings on the back. And I remember talking to some of my friends and I was like, what should I get on the back of this shirt? And it came down to big MILF energy. Like, like you give off that big MILF energy. And it wasn't supposed to be anything sexual. It wasn't supposed to be anything like that. It was more supposed to be like, I'm a mom and it's okay that I have my hobbies and that I dance and that I can still be who I am as a mom.
Right.
But because of social media, and at this time, my dance account started to blow up, like way more than my fitness stuff was at the time. And I was really into line dancing, which I love country swing, and I also love line dancing. But line dancing, like girls get a little more like sassy with their dances, right? Like there's booty shaking, there's all that going on.
It's definitely changed quite a bit. I never was like, I learned line dancing when I was really young in elementary school, and then living in Flagstaff, it wasn't a big thing. But coming down here, obviously there's groups and communities for everything. And for me, I first started in like the Spanish dancing, bachata, tango, salsa, those kinds of things. But then I was like, you know, I listen to a lot more country now. Like I hated country music. I'll put that out there. When I grew up, my whole family completely anti country. Yeah. Like you couldn't catch us dead listening to any type of country music. Coming down here, it's 90% of my playlist now, and I don't know why. But I think it's also just like
it's pop country now.
Yeah, it's pop country, but I think it's also just like I used to listen to rap, I used to listen to all that, and then the mumble rap shit started happening. And all the other stuff to where it's like I listen to music for the art behind it. I listen to it for the message. I listen like rappers. NF is like my all-time favorite.
I love NF. He has been on my gym playlist all month.
NF, Hobson, Logic, J. Cole, like those are the kind of rappers that I'll listen to because they have something with meaning in it. It's not just talking about sex, drugs, money, all that kind of stuff. But then I started listening to some of the country songs. I'm like, you know what? I can actually audibly hear what they're talking about. Let me see, like, what they're... A lot of it is still stories. Heartbreak. Or maybe, like, there's one... I don't know if you've... it's pretty big. If you're
I
in
probably
country,
know it.
23 by... I forgot what it's...
I think I know which one you're talking
where
about.
he's like...
Yeah.
Soon I'll be 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one, if you listen to the lyrics, it's talking about a kid who's like in his early 20s, whose uncle teaches him how to drink and how to express himself through drinking. And he's 23, turning 24 as an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And like he went through that rough life of his dad, like making him work in the heat and all that. And then like he had a relationship to where at first they would kind of drink together. Hers was wine, his was whiskey and stuff, but then it shows that progression of how drinking can affect a person and stuff like, oh yeah, we used to drink together, but now it's too much, unfortunately. And this guy, you would think this is a song coming from a 40 or 50-year-old man who has all this experience.
Yeah.
He's in his 20s talking about this kind of shit. So I was like,
I also think
that.
in your 20s, it's really easy to get carried away with that because no one tells you no.
Yeah.
No one tells you no. And the way society is, it condones all of that.
Well,
it condones
it doesn't just not
partying
tell
and
you
drinking.
no.
YOLO, like let's
It tells
go.
you to do it.
Yeah.
You look at, especially with social media, you look at these kids in their early 20s. What are they doing? They're at bars. They're at these clubs. They're drinking. Like 90% of the stuff that, at least that's on my algorithm, are these kids that are out partying, getting drunk. Like you hear, like in college. What is the main thing that happens when you join a fraternity? You get hazed. What's the main thing that happens in hazing? Most of the time, it's alcohol.
Yeah.
Anytime in college, the biggest thing is alcohol. You don't ever, you don't show up to a party and typically not drink.
Yeah.
So
it's such a social thing. And I think that's kind of like where how everything happened for me, because I told you, I'm not going to get into details of it, but I was in an MLM for 7 years.
Yeah.
And it was very much so structured around religion, part of it. And so I was very sheltered in the beginning of my 20s up until 27 when my sheltered by like we didn't go like to clubs or anything like that.
Okay.
Like I got pregnant at 20, like I got married at 23, got pregnant at 23, had or did I have her at 23? I had her in 2018, my first daughter. So like it was very much so I was heavy into partying before I was 20. I actually I'm very open about this, and it's like my old friends know this, but like I am, I'm 29 now, turning 30. So I'm going on my 9th year of sobriety because I got wrapped up in raving really bad. And then I got sober but right before I turned 21. And that's actually like what this tattoo means to me. That was my sobriety tattoo from that stuff. So I kind of had like a wild child stage before I even turned 21. And then I like settled into this like MLM, which there's like pluses and minuses to that.
Right.
I think I didn't really get the opportunity to go through my 20s like most people would. And so whenever, I'm not saying that you should do that, but what I'm saying is whenever something is like not locked up per se, but like locked behind like what reality is, and you just throw them into reality, then like you kind of like get lost, right? I started like going to the bar all the time and all that, and then it did turn into, obviously I got my nickname. Everyone thought it was so funny. They were like, that's amazing. And then all my stuff started to blow up, and I just like owned that. I changed my Instagram name. I started building a brand off of it because I was getting all these views and everything. And honestly, at first I do think that kind of went to my head a little bit because I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for that in fitness, but I wasn't prepared for that in the dance industry, which is very, very different. Where again, people are like, fitness is like all about being the best version of yourself, being healthy, eating well, doing all this. Well, I started to fall out of fitness because all my dance stuff kind of took off. I wasn't working out as much. I wasn't being intentional with that area at all. If you look at my fitness platform, it really hasn't done anything in the last like 2.5 years since dance blew up for me. And I started getting around people who drank a lot. I started very heavily pursuing dance, like teaching. And in this mix of all of this happening, I was like downward spiraling, but I didn't talk about it with anyone because I am a very prideful person and I'm like, I can do this on my own. So what ended up happening is I've had one boyfriend since my divorce, and anyone who watches this knows why I'm laughing, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But he very much so was encouraging of me being a quote unquote MILF. And I needed a second job at the time, and this is really where things kind of like started to progress at the beginning of last year. And I got a job at a bikini barista stand because I'm like, if people are gonna sexualize me and if they are going to like basically like call me hot or check me out, like I might as well be getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And that was
like
my
owning
mindset.
it again.
Yeah,
like
owning it again.
Owning it in your own way.
Yeah, and like in my mind, I was like, I'm only gonna do this for like 3 months. The tips are gonna be great because I'm a single mom. Like I will do almost, not quite everything, but almost whatever it takes to provide for my daughters.
Yeah.
And so I secretly got this. I didn't tell my family. It was very, very hush hush. My ex-boyfriend very much so encouraged it. And then it got to a point, him and I ended up breaking up a few months later. And I kind of started pursuing dance, but I was still working at this job. And it was just enough. It paid me just enough to kind of keep me there, but not enough for me to get ahead. So I got stuck.
At this bikini barista job?
Yeah, I got stuck there. And I'm not going to say the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, let's just say we have like our own conflicts.
I didn't even know they existed
Yeah.
until moving out here.
Yeah.
That it's like one of those big city like realizations, like somebody combined coffee and
Yeah. Well, like in Washington,
Yeah.
so Washington bikini stands are a lot different. And that's why I didn't want my family to find out I was working in one. Because the ones in Washington where my family are, they're legit, like, they get shut down for
Really?
Prostitution. Yes. Their Instagrams have to be private because of the things or the lack of what they're wearing. And it's literally like, it's not even lingerie.
I feel like Washington would be cold to do that.
Well, I mean, like, they have heaters and stuff
okay.
like that, but
Yeah.
they're legit, like, they're not wearing bikinis in there. They're literally wearing, like, pasties and netting. Like, if they're wearing, I've seen girls on Instagram, because I'm come from a town where I know, like, some of these girls.
Yeah.
They're literally wearing netting, and because netting is clothing, they're not wearing anything underneath it.
See,
Literally. Like, I was like, okay, I can't, like, you do you, girl. Like,
Yeah.
more power to you, but, like, I can't follow you. I can't have that popping up on my timeline. I'm
I
so
like trying
sorry.
new coffee places myself.
You're
and
like, where are these?
Well, there's one near my house.
Oh.
It's one of the few that I have never been to because like there's that like predicament.
What the
I
one
can
like
go,
the franchise that I worked for, or
think
like a
so.
small? Yeah, no, that one's like actual bikinis.
Yeah, I haven't gone there because of that fear of like the stigma of like, oh, I know why you're going here. I like to try new coffee and stuff, and for
Yeah.
me, it's like a different kind of concept.
Yeah.
But I haven't gone because of that whole thing. Like, I want to go somewhere because of what the coffee is and all that. Like, there's a couple
Fun
of really
fact:
cool.
that's actually where I met Brian.
Is it really?
Yeah.
For context, I met you through Brian, who we both
Yes.
have known for, I'm guessing, I don't know how long you've known him.
Like a year and a half now, probably
Okay.
a year and a half. Yeah.
So I've known him since he was going to NAU, back when I was like, and this is kind of the similar thing with our earlier years. I started a nightclub promoting / event coordination company when I was 18.
Okay.
So I had been clubbing and going to those parties and doing all that way before I was 21.
Same.
Because, and like I know a lot of people like, oh, is it illegal? We made it to where it was legal. It was 18 and up parties with like
Yes,
a 21
that's
and up
exactly what I did.
drinking thing. That's how I met Brian, because I had started this company. At first it was house parties and stuff, and then I get a weird message from this kid Brian that's like, hey, I do videography, do you need any media stuff done? I'm like, yeah, come on by. I'll have you film some stuff. He made a couple of videos, and at that time my assistant, she knew some people out in LA that were kind of bigger artists and stuff, and she's like, if I get you in contact, do you want to try to see about hosting a giant concert with them? I'm like, say less. And so he was head of my media company, or head of media for this company for like 2 or 3 years until he decided to move back to California.
Yeah.
But then that's like how me and him originally met, and then he was doing his thing out there, came back out here, and then
Yeah.
the rest is history. But yeah, it was just kind of funny of like how all that, because like I know we both mentioned Brian, and he's literally
love him,
one of the most viral people on my page right now.
Yeah, I just like, I look at his content and video because you know that I'm really oh my gosh, like I take
a lot of inspiration from his
gosh.
stuff.
I'm like, you have no idea, and I feel like he's so hard on himself.
He is, but I think that's what makes him better.
Yeah.
I think that's like, he doesn't, because I've seen his content compared to especially a lot of other like videographers and cinematographers out here.
It's so good.
They charge as much, if not more, than him sometimes. I look at their stuff, I'm like, this is shit. I'm sorry, but like
this is not.
You're there's nothing wrong with being self-taught, but I'm like, it's obvious you're self-taught, and you don't want to be obvious that you're self-taught.
Well, it's also like when you're self-taught and you think you're the shindig, and you don't want to like get better and perfect yourself.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, this is good.
In Brian's work, he's always trying to get better.
Yeah, and it's
times where he's like texting me, he's like, yeah, I've just been up all night, like blah blah blah, and I'm like, you need to go to sleep.
I know.
Like right now. I think that's definitely like, I've been through that. I'm trying to get back to like where we were at with with the downfall of everything. So my ex and I broke up after that, and so I was like stuck with this job, and I was just kind of stuck there. I started pursuing dance.
What was it about dance that made you pursue that instead of, like, obviously I know the dance
I think it's
page
an
blew up.
addiction. I think it's an addiction to dance, because you get like that rush whenever you dance. It's also like it was something that I was good at. I blew up at it, and I was like, I can make money at this.
Did you grow up dancing, or was this
I was a competitive cheerleader for 12 plus years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you had the coordination and stuff already there. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just something that you're like, I'm just gonna go try this and then Prodigy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I also was kind of pursuing social media at the time. Long story short, what really started like my huge downfall last year, where I fell into a pit, was working at the bikini stand. And then there was this weekend where like it was kind of like a bender weekend for everyone, and I'm not gonna get like too crazy into it, but something really awful happened that weekend. I stepped away for dancing for like a month or so, for like my own mental health. And then so my first time that I went back to the bar to dance after that, I was assuming that no one kind of knew about this situation.
Okay.
And in the dance scene, and this is like how I talked about the dance scene has drama, it can be toxic and everything like that. Everyone thinks that they have a say in everyone else's life, and they have to know what's going on in everyone's life, even if it's not true, even if they were never there. It's huge gossip.
Right.
So I get back to the bar for the first time in a month after all of this had kind of like mentally, I had went through this, and I'm just like kind of at a low right now. I see people whispering to each other and like looking at me, like very much so throughout the night. Somebody that I know comes up to me and is very aggressive, but they were like, hey, so apparently you have some tea we need to talk about. And I looked them dead in the face, and I was like, we have absolutely nothing to talk about, so I have no idea what you mean.
Was this a person that was like really close to you, or
at
just
the
like
time
a stranger?
it was somebody who was really close to me at the time, and kind of has connections in all of the dance scene. Yeah. And so I find out what's really being spread, basically. And it's kind of a situation where they were trying to like weed me out of the dance scene, or basically de-escalate like what had happened, and so that no one would believe me, and I wasn't going to tell anyone anyways.
Yeah.
And so at that point I kind of had, I want to say, like a mental breakdown, and I probably was the worst version of myself for about 6 months last year. But it had started earlier in the year. Like, it was kind of like slowly. So what ended up happening is I was like, okay, I can let people tell lies about me.
Right.
Or I can completely just let people know what's going on. So what ended up happening, it blew up on social media. I'm talking like it blew up to a point that people I don't even know exist know some scenario either from me or the other people. Like there is still so much like information out there that is not true, which whatever, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But it was like across the country thing. But what ended up happening is when my situation kind of came out, a lot of other people's situations kind of came out, and a lot of history started to come out, and it was like, this is something that happens a lot. And so
You kind of like opened the floodgates a little bit.
I did.
Okay.
I did. And like, did I regret it at a certain point? Yes and no. Because I regret it only because the dance scene, people still just like don't care. Or they'll turn the cheek and they'll be like, oh, that didn't happen or this didn't happen. Well, you weren't there, so you don't know. There was only certain people there. You know what I mean?
People believe what they want to believe based
Yeah.
off of a bias that they might have. Like in the film community, which is what I'm part of, like my main thing is acting, filmmaking, and that kind of stuff. The drama that happens when you get involved with that community is something that you would never be able to predict.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, okay, if you tell me this, I'm sorry that happened. I don't know the full story, so I can't, like, I'm not going to completely form a bias around this person based off of what you told me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what their side of the story is.
So I'm not gonna like, it was a lot. And I definitely, in that stage of my life, hurting people hurt other people. And I did act in ways where I did hurt other people who may not have like, shouldn't, I guess, have directed my anger at. There was one particular person it should have been directed at.
Yeah.
But instead it was a group of people. But I think whenever you're in fight or flight mode and you literally feel like everyone's against you, you kind of just like go crazy.
It's just part of
Yeah.
your defense mechanism as a human being.
Yeah, and so it ended up getting so bad that it was like the entire dance scene was in chaos in Arizona, at least, if not across the country. People were taking sides. People hate this person. This person.
This is all based off of a situation with you?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It like there's two particular scenarios where I realized the power of influence, which I'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where each side was threatening lawyers.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I had spoken with a few, but by this point last year in October specifically, I was probably at the lowest I've ever been. Like I was still at that coffee stand, so I'd been there almost a year. The coffee stand wasn't healthy. Like I had men grabbing me by the face. Yeah, that happened one time, and I got laughed at about it when I went and told a manager. I'm like having a breakdown in the back because I'm like, you don't understand how triggering this is for me. Yeah.
Well, the fact that they would even like.
Yeah. He like grabbed me by the face. He's like, I want you to call me daddy. And I was like,
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. So
this is putting
I mean,
such a bad rap for
no.
No.
Yeah. And so like I had gotten to this point where like my social media had sexualized me. Everything had sexualized me to a point it was kind of like all these things were happening to me, and it almost felt self-inflicted at this point because I'm like, well, I mean, people say like it's how you present yourself. It doesn't make any of it okay at all. But there gets to a point where you start to get in your own head. And last October, actually on the 23rd, it'll be a year, I was in a very dark place. I did not attempt anything. I'm going to say that like as clear as day. I did not attempt anything, but I was having some very, very dark thoughts. Like very, very dark thoughts. And I never wanted to admit that to anyone, but they were so dark that I texted my brother and I said, are you busy right now? And it was just like everything. And the reason why I could text my brother is my brother and I are very close, to a point like I've talked to him at his low points. So basically I was like, I need somebody to talk to right now. And he just understood that there was something going on. And he sat on the phone with me for 3 hours that night. And my daughters were there that night, thank goodness, because like I look back on it and I just, at that moment, that night, I don't know who I was. I honestly think back and I'm like, I'm scared to have known like if I would have been by myself, because I was just that low.
Yeah.
So he talked to me on the phone for about 3 hours, and I obviously told him like about all the things, and he encouraged me. He's like, you need to work on yourself. You need to get a better job. You need to stop prioritizing dancing the way that you are. And as awful as this is, saying it to your brother, you need to let this go. Which was like, because I was like fighting, and I'm like, well, there's like other people and all this stuff. And he was like, for your mental health and your daughters, you need to let this go. And at this point, I would say like I was the farthest removed from faith that I've ever been. Like I didn't even believe anything last year. So I finally opened up to my best friend who lived an hour from me and kind of told her like, I'm not in the best place right now. The next day, she was at my house, picked me up. I literally stayed at her house for almost 3 weeks straight until like I was like in a good spot again mentally. And I had been looking for other jobs for months. Now, like where I'm at in my life, like obviously like I've been very public on social media about like having those thoughts and whatnot in the past. So,
which I think is like, I know it's scary to put out there.
I've had so many people reach out.
It's a humanizing thing because especially with today, like depression and anxiety and mental health is at a crisis right now. We have more people than ever, and like even in the community of men, I'm hearing more people and more men, and like social media is kind of bringing out the side in men that isn't really expressed about, the side that like, yeah, we guess what, we have emotions too. Like I'm someone with hardcore depression, anxiety, and stuff.
Yeah.
And those moments that you're mentioning, I've had plenty of those. I haven't actually attempted anything, but those.
I just remember like
depths.
Having the thought like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, like,
I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't want to do anything, but like I don't want to. I can't keep doing this. Like I can't really explain it. Like that's why I say I don't think I would have ever acted upon it.
Yeah.
But the thoughts were very severe that one time, and there was like a triggering event as to why, but it's just like not anything that I'm like gonna put on this. But basically, so I kind of downward spiraled but upward spiraled at the same time. During this time, it was just very like up and down. I was trying to figure out like a new job and all these things, and then I dyed my hair black, like black, like it was long and black.
Really?
I used to wear like big fake eyelashes, like long black hair, like a beanie. Like,
was there like a reason behind this?
I will find
okay,
honestly,
I want to see it.
I think it was like I called it my man eater stage because I was just so hurt by men that I became very, very like, men are trash, like this and this, not taking accountability for myself at the same time.
I think there's accountability across the board that needs to be taken in. Like I've met a lot of man-eater women, but at the same time, like I've been hurt by a lot of women.
Yeah.
And there's like different cycles and stuff that happens. Like there's the cycle of like that first guy who never learned love hurts the girl who then hurts the next guy, and then there's just vicious cycles like that. So I think there's just like accountability across the board that people need to take in, you know? Yeah.
I'm trying to find a specific picture like that. Okay, my hair looks light in this. I don't know why. Okay, let me scroll back up. But yeah, so I dyed my hair dark. I ended up finally getting a new job. I was still dancing. I was still drinking pretty often. And then I got alcohol poisoning on New Year's Eve, like very bad.
Really?
Very bad alcohol poisoning. And it was kind of like my true, like was having wake up moments until then, but that was kind of like, okay, I got to change some things in my life. And so I still have it in my notepad. On January 1st, I put in my notepad, my goal for 2024 was just to become the best version of myself. Well, see, that's my black hair. That was when I still worked at the coffee stand. So
Okay.
yeah, it was like, oh, that's a better one. So yeah, just like long black
Oh
hair.
wow, like straight like jet black.
Like jet black. And then I used to wear just a ton of makeup all the time because we had to for the coffee stand. We were required, like
yeah.
we would get written up if we didn't wear makeup.
Really?
Supposedly, yeah. If we didn't come to work like made ready, like because we're kind of like a touristy attraction.
Yeah.
People come to see us, so we have to like look pretty and stuff. And that was really toxic because I didn't wear fake eyelashes before that. So I started, basically I kind of went through an identity crisis. Is what I describe my big MILF energy stage is like my identity crisis. So fake lashes, black hair, drinking a lot, to the point that January 1st, now I still drink every once in a while. Like I was never an alcoholic or anything like that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And this is all like within the last year.
Yeah. So January 1st, I cut out alcohol. I actually cut out energy drinks for a month.
I need to do that.
Because I was drinking like 3 Celsius a day.
Right now I'm up to 2, sometimes 3 a day.
Yeah. So basically, I was like, this is my last year in my 20s because I'm 29. I feel like my 20s has been taken away from literally every single person in my life. And I was like, this is the year I'm just going to give back to myself and pour into myself. So what ended up happening is I started like listening to a podcast every day. It was Date Yourself Instead, because I was like really struggling with men and dating and all of that and how men perceive me. And then I had a friend, his name is Chris. I love him to death. He is one of my best friends. He is coming into town in a month, or not a month, a week. That is very different. Anyways, he was like, have you, he said something about church. He was like, have you like thought about, because he had just found faith in his life. And again, I had faith for a long period of time off and on. And I also have faith wounds and trauma wounds based off of other people because people are imperfect. So I had pushed it away. And at this stage of my life, I was very like anti going to church. And he was like, hey, like when was the last time, whatever. And I was like, honestly, like he told me about his baptism. That's what it was. And I was like, I'm really happy for you because I know that that is a very important thing to people. And so I'm not going to like shut that down. Like I'm still a good person. Like I still care about you.
It's just respecting his beliefs.
Yeah. And this was before him and I like got like super close. Like as like we were friends, but not like close. And he started asking me about my faith life. And I was like, you know, I just don't think I'm on that path anymore. And I was like, okay with it. But one thing I did tell him, I said, I'm not on that path anymore, but I feel like I'll end up going back to church this year. But I'm not ready for that because I knew of how I was living and the things I was doing. And honestly, I was like legitimately scared. I'm like, I can't step in a church. Like I'm like the farthest removed from faith right now because I thought you had to be perfect. So what ended up happening, I just continued to work on myself. And then I make some new friends in February, 2 very important people in my life now. And I met them in the dance scene. They're really, really great guys. And what ended up happening is they invited me to their baptism. It was the weekend before Easter, I think. And they invited me to their baptism. And I was like, oh, man. Because they had asked me about my faith before, and I was like, you know, like I like used to kind of like, and at that point, like my heart had softened a little bit, just enough to like be like, oh yeah, like I used to be a Christian, but like I'm not now and everything like that. Like I literally still had, like I have like Christian scripture tattoos.
Yeah,
I have a cross on my back. Like this was like all from before. So
what is that one?
This one says trust God, bro. You know, the company. I
like
got
that.
it when I was in my gym girl stage because I always said bro, and I love that company. Like, yeah.
Okay.
So,
I don't know that company, but I just saw that one.
Yeah,
That
I
one's
call it
cool.
my prison tat because it's faded.
Yeah.
Even though I've never been to prison. So anyways, they invite me to their baptism, and I literally put in this group text, I was like, if anyone sees lightning strike down, don't worry. Like, it was just me. Because again, I'm big MILF energy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm walking into church like. So they invite me to their baptism, and I'm sobbing. Like, just convicted. I was like, I knew as soon as I stepped into church, like, that was end game for me. Like, I knew as soon as I stepped back into church, I would end up going again. And the thing that I'm so grateful for is that even when I fell out of faith, like their dad, my girls' dad still took them to church on Saturdays on the day that he had, like, because of the way our schedule, yeah. So I was like very grateful for that. Even though I was removed from faith, like we still made sure my oldest daughter was going to go to a charter school. Like I still believed in good values and raising the girls on it. And I never was negative about it to them.
Which is very refreshing, the fact that you didn't let your own personal bias or experiences affect the developing mind of a younger person. Like, it's one thing if, like, because my mom, she kept me out of anything religious based on her reasoning was for me to be able to explore it myself.
Wow.
However, looking back, I wasn't able to actually explore it. I wasn't allowed to go to church. I wasn't allowed to open the Bible. I wasn't allowed to mention God, Jesus. I got actually grounded when I was a kid for going to church with friends. So it wasn't
It was forced down my throat as a kid, and that's why I rejected it as a teenager.
So my mom, when she was really young, it was forced down, and it wasn't like the accepting type of churches that we have.
I wonder if she went to Southern Baptist. Was it Southern Baptist?
I don't. I haven't really asked her. It wasn't here or anything.
Okay.
She's from California, so it was something there. But like her stories of her mom, like her mom or my grandma was one of those like psychotic type of people that isn't like the accepting. It's you're going to hell for this. You're a horrible person.
That's kind of
teaching
like
hate, that kind of stuff.
That's exactly like kind of
that pushed her away. It made it to where with me and my brother, it was I don't want you guys to be forced into that, but it made it to where like we couldn't explore, like we couldn't learn about this kind of stuff. So I didn't become a man of faith until my early 20s.
Yeah, so I came back to faith in my early 20s because I rejected this. This part of my tattoo is actually I got when I was atheist, and then I wanted to turn it into a faith-based tattoo because I got really into like I love the sun and the moon and all these things. So in my early, before I turned 21, like I was super removed. I found faith again, and so coming back to faith is not a new Christian. I knew where my pitfalls in life were. And I think that's why I was so resistant to go back to the church, is because I was like, I know where I'm falling short.
Yeah.
And so I got invited and I started just going on Sundays again. And I would go on Thursdays for the young adults because that service is fire. I'll probably go there after this maybe. And so, God kind of started slowly working on my heart, and I started like growing and like making like better choices. And what ended up happening is my drastic change was June 7th of this year when I finally decided to change my name off on Instagram to officially Cait instead of Big MILF Energy. And I didn't tell anyone I was going to do this. So when I did it, like when I tell you, people message me like, are you okay? What's going on? Like blah, blah, blah. And I actually had some pushback on it. Yeah.
From who?
Older friends, people from my like old friend group who kind of were like not encouraging me to be the best version of myself. They're kind of like, do what is like more like pleasureful for you in your life.
Right.
So what ended up happening, this is a really funny story, and I'm so excited to like tell it.
Yeah.
Because so I got a ticket at the beginning of May.
Like a speeding ticket?
No, my tags were expired.
Oh, okay.
But the car, so this car had been sitting for like a year or two, and I never got the car put in my name because I wasn't driving it. Well, now fast forward, I am driving it because I need this car. And I got pulled over, and they're like, you have no registration, no tags. So they gave me a ticket, and I was like, okay, like now I officially have to get this car in my name, which I had no contact with the people who sold it to me. So I had no idea how I was going to do this. Yeah. So I thought the ticket was due on June 6th. And I go to pay the ticket online on June 6th, and it's like, you have a warrant out for your arrest.
No.
I'm sitting at the coffee shop staring at this email. I've never seen something on my phone screen say you have a warrant and like you can't pay this ticket. Like I literally want to throw up talking about this. So I'm staring at it and it's my day off. And I'm like, I am not moving this seat until the courthouse opens, because if I get in my car and get arrested right now, I'm going to like cry, because it was due the day before. It was due on June 5th. So I called the courthouse and I'm like, look, I'm so sorry. I thought this was due today. It was due yesterday, AKA maybe pay your ticket whenever you get it. And the lady on the phone tells me, I was like, can I like pay it or whatever? She literally told me no. Like, she was like, just bring in your new registration. I was like, well, can I just pay the ticket? And she was like, no, just bring in your registration. Granted, I still hadn't figured out how to get this car in my name. So now I'm like, I have to figure out how to get this car in my name because I have a warrant and she's not letting me pay this ticket. And I'm terrified to go to the courthouse because I'm like, are they going to arrest me when I walk? Yeah. So I spent all day trying to figure this out. And part of the reason why it wasn't registered is because I'd been getting work done to this car to get it to pass admissions. Hello? Oh, that's my work. Oh. Like, it's my work alarm. So then I'm just like, how am I going to like figure this out? I text my boss. I call my boss. Text her. I don't know what I did. I was like, hey, I accidentally have a warrant out. And this may take more than 24 hours to figure out. And I have to figure it out in 2 days because I get my daughters back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God forbid I'm driving in the car with both of them and I get pulled over and
for whatever reason. And
I get arrested. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. Some cops are like that.
Yeah.
And so the first day I thought I had figured it out. I'm like crying on the way to admissions, like sobbing my eyes out. Like, to me, I'm having one of the most severe anxiety attacks of my life. I'm like, I've been doing everything great this year. Why is this happening to me? Well, when you leave things unattended, this is what happens.
Yeah.
But I'm sobbing on the way to admissions. I'm praying. I'm asking friends to pray for me. I'm like, we need to pray this passes admissions. I don't know what I'm going to do. I call the guy who's been working on my car. I was like, the check engine light hasn't came on. Like, is this going to work? He's like, if it's not on, it should work. I don't know. I'm like, oh my God. I go to admissions and it passes. I drive out of admissions sobbing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like God is so good. God's taking care of me. And then I go to the registration place and I hand them what I thought was the registration. They're like, this is the bill of sale. I'm like, okay, like your point. They're like, this isn't a registration. I'm like, okay, your point. They're like, we can't register the car. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I have to get the car registered.
I need to get this done here.
Yeah, like exactly. So then I go home because by this point it's been an all day event. And I told my boss, I was like, I'm not coming in tomorrow. I need a mental health day. And she's super cool. So she was like, no, you need to get this figured out. I start researching how to get cars in your name and all this stuff. Well, there's this thing that you can do where you can get like a title bond. And so I start researching it and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So the next day I wake up, I'm getting ready. I figured out that I'm going to go like to the DMV and do all these things. I'm also terrified to drive my car. And this is where it's really, really funny. So when I fell out of faith, I was super into zodiacs and crystals. I hate to admit that. But want to know what I learned that's really interesting? As humans, we are literally made to worship something and idolize something. Mm-hmm. And that is, in my belief, God, obviously. So whenever we're worshiping or idolizing something else. So example, a lot of people idolize dance. A lot of people idolize money. A lot of people are idolizing zodiac signs and anything because we are literally made to worship and idolize something.
How so?
I don't know really how to explain it, but if you look at it, every single person has something that they wholeheartedly are either invested in as a hobby or where their mindset is constantly revolving around. That's just how our brains work. I've literally talked to so many people about that, and they're
I'm
like,
not
no
saying
way,
I disagree, but
you're
it's
right.
like it's an interesting concept because there is like agnostic people
And then
who
there's
claim-
like celebrities that people are constantly like checking to see like what these people are doing or these people are doing,
Yeah.
what's going on. Like,
it's like, oh, I don't believe in anything. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be a religious figure that you believe
no,
in.
yeah,
Like,
it could literally be money.
Yeah.
Like, or how, like I said, so many people's lives so much revolve around like dance.
Yeah.
Like, it's, well, from what I see, because I'm in that industry, right? And so I had this necklace, my good luck necklace that I wore all the time that said 1111 on it. Yeah, and I wore it all the time. I did not take this necklace off. Like, this was my good luck charm. And so I'm at my house about to leave. I grab my Bible, I pray, because at this point I had been like, you know, coming to faith again. And I'm listening to worship and like doing all the things because I want this to be the perfect day.
mm-hmm.
And I look in the mirror and I just feel like, I don't know if you've ever felt like either like God or like whatever, like how you said you're a Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or no? Yeah. I don't know how God communicates with you, but it's different for every person. But I could very clearly, it was not my voice in my head. Like, it was 1000% God. And I've had experiences like that in my life before, which is why I know, like, obviously why I have such a strong faith. But I was like looking at my necklace, and he said, why are you putting in faith in things that don't matter? Why aren't you putting your faith in me? And literally it was like, you need to take the necklace off. And to me, I'm mid-anxiety attack. I have a warrant out for my arrest. I'm just like...
As someone with OCD, this is giving me anxiety.
Yeah, like literally I was like, I can't do that. Like I literally, and like it was like the softest voice. Like it wasn't stern. It was just so soft. And it was just like, do you trust me? And I was like, yeah. And I literally cried when I was taking off this necklace because I was having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like... I literally said a prayer at that moment. I was like, God, if you work this today, I will fully surrender to you. I will literally surrender to you. I will, I don't even know exactly like what I said in my prayer, but I basically was like, I will give up my identity. I'll give up my social media. I'll give up everything to you.
Yeah.
Because my social media was kind of like my last stronghold.
Right.
Because it was like, well, if I change Big MILF Energy, like I'm going to lose my following or people aren't going to do whatever or whatever. And so it was like this conflict of this double identity. Like I told you, I had became this different person for like the past 6 months that I had been working on. But on social media, like I was still this other person.
Right.
So I basically like told God that I would surrender everything to him. I left the house, everything got figured out, and they dropped the ticket. Even though it was late, even though I had a warrant, I didn't have to pay the ticket. The car got registered in my name. I picked for the 2-year registration. So next summer, I'm not having like anxiety. I got back home and I just sat there with my breakfast sandwich from Black Rock. Shout out to them because I love them. And my fuel. And I'm just sitting there like, there's literally like no way this like just happened. And I changed my Instagram name. I eventually later that day made an announcement because after I changed it, I was getting messages within 10 minutes. And
really?
Yeah, and it was crazy because I had told some of my friends that I had like been wanting to present myself better. And they were literally, they told me after this, they were like, we wanted to tell you that you should do that, but we also didn't like want to tell you to do that. So the fact like everyone around me, like who all of us are very strong in our faith, we're all kind of on the same page, but none of us had talked about it, was wild. And so from there, when I first started my fitness platform, I used to post scripture and stuff when I wasn't like as strong in faith, but was faith. So then I just kind of was like, okay, like I'm gonna be in my Bible every day. I'm going to post like scripture or whatever. Like I literally do not care. Like I do not care anyone's opinion. I don't care if I lose followers. Like I don't care because I know what God has done in my life in the past few months. So I started like posting about faith. I eventually obviously lightened my hair, stopped wearing heavy makeup and all the things. And what ended up happening with that is I just became like so like convicted that now, like, I have like my prayer broadcast on my page. I have people like constantly reaching out, just saying like how like I have impacted them, or now they want to change things in their life and like what steps they want to make. And just like, it's absolutely insane and humbling and amazing to see what's on the other end of like your deliverance. And so it's like this crazy like story about how I like my life literally fell apart. I lost like all my friends, but I look back on it and like it was also worth it at the end of the day. And like now to like where I am a few months later after doing that, and like how people know me now, it's literally like I look back and I'm like, I don't even know who that person was.
It's kind of, there was a part there that you were mentioning that kind of resonated with me, and I find it very interesting, of the transactional nature of human beings. How you were sitting in that car and you were saying, if you do this, God, I will convict myself to you. I had that so many times to where I'd be sitting in my car, and this is like before I officially went to faith or anything.
Yeah.
I would say like, God, if you're real, like if you do this,
I just need a sign.
I'll believe. And I have, obviously in the Bible, it talks about like you just need to have faith and you're saved if you believe in Christ and all that. But it's just interesting that our nature is, if you do something for me, then I'll give you what you want, which is my faith in you.
Yeah, and I think I've had so many conversations with people about like, how do you find God in the dark seasons or whatever. And I had this thing that when I was driving here today, because I knew it was going to come up, but I can't remember at the moment. Oh my goodness. Basically, like, God won't take you out of your dark season, but he'll walk and meet you and walk you through it, because there's something you have to learn in that season.
Well, and that was part of the big thing with me, and I try not to make this too much of like a religious podcast, but it is a big part of my life.
It's a big this is like a part
healing.
Of my story.
Yeah, like I grew up with those pagan type of things. Like my mom ended up turning into a pagan who practiced witchcraft, who practiced all this kind of stuff. That's kind of what she fell into. And then I've seen the most drastic changes even in her. I turned 18, moved out, and was completely on my own, moved down to Phoenix, and was in the deepest, darkest depression of my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody here. I was working a job that I hated. Everything about my life was just wrong. And the girlfriend I had at the time, I was like, I think I'm going to go to church. And she's like, I thought you weren't religious. I'm like, I'm not, but I need at least different community. I know that the people that I surround myself with is going to be the impact of my own mental health and my own sanity. So even if I don't believe in whatever stuff they believe in and stuff, I know I'll at least be with people that want positivity, that want healing, that want to heal others, that want to bring joy to others. They're not there to bring us down. They're there to include us. They're there, even if it is some cult or whatever, like this is the kind of thought process that I was having at that time. I was like, I at least need to be around that positive energy. I need to be around that healingness. And so I was like, you don't have to go with me. I'm not saying you have to go with me or anything, but this is something I feel like I need to do. And so, and like I went that first day in church, I cried. I've never cried in church or anything. But it was like one of those things where the message was like,
it's literally it's convicting. It like, it's the Holy Spirit is what it is.
And it wasn't like one of those like, oh, it's just coincidence or they're talking, like it was like, oh shit, like you guys are talking about this. And
and it's like crazy how that happens too, because that's happened a few times to
and
me.
even since then, like,
and it's always the times you're debating about going, and then you go and then you're like, it was resistance is what it was.
And my faith has definitely gone up and down since then. Like, I'm not gonna lie and say like, oh, I'm the most diehard Christian of all time, because I look at it in the sense of a relationship. Of my relationship with God is not always going to be 100% on fire and perfect. Marriages go through ups and downs. Any type of relationships go through ups and downs. And so, and it's also the human aspect That's one of the reasons I like to go to different churches. I like to talk to different people, not stick to one certain thing, because humans are imperfect. And if you're putting everything into a specific building and a person, you're going to get disappointed no matter what. And like, I don't have these kind of conversations to say everyone needs to believe in God and everyone needs to be Christian. I tell people, you need to believe in something higher than yourself, though. That's where the healing comes in.
Yeah.
For me, with the sexual trauma that I went through, with the physical trauma, with any trauma that I've gone through, part of the healing was knowing, at least what I was able to tell myself was, everything happens for a reason, in the sense that, could I have gone through life not going through this shit? Yes. But there's a reason I did go through that stuff, because now I'm able to use that in a specific purpose. I'm able to help others. I'm able to do something I wouldn't have normally been able to do had I not gone through the firsthand experience of that kind of stuff. So when I do have a guest that comes on and talks about sexual trauma, I'm not going to be like, oh shit, this is an awkward topic. I'm like, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, even from a man's perspective.
Even from a man's perspective.
Or they come on, they talk about that, like, I know what it's like to not believe in God. I went through the first 20 years of my life not believing in God, not believing in any type of higher force. I literally my family and I would make fun of Christians, calling them Bible thumper. My brother he's an atheist. He still calls me a Bible thumper. I literally had to sit down.
I get hate comments. Yeah. It's crazy. And I just look at it and I'm like,
I've had to sit with my brother and be like, I understand you're an atheist. I'm not going to sit here and say that you need to believe in God.
Yeah.
But as two full-grown men now, we need to move past this thing of you making fun of my faith. And
notice how it's always about Christians that people make fun of. They don't make fun of Hinduism. They don't make fun of Buddha, like all the other stuff. It's always the Christians that get attacked.
I think that, though, is based off of where we are and kind of the fact that, like, Christian is the primary type of religion in the Western Hemisphere type of thing.
I also think Christians are often very outspoken, but, like, that's our faith.
Yeah.
Like,
and having that kind of conversation with family, it's uncomfortable. It wasn't uncomfortable for me because I've learned to estrange myself from family, not because of I'm just one of those kids that says screw family, but because realizing of doesn't matter what this person's role in your life is. If they're not healthy for you, you need to cut them out. And that's how healing happens, is by cutting out the bad fruit. Like I always tell people, it doesn't matter if they're blood to me. That DNA makes no relationship to me. That gives you no special treatment in my life to call you family. That gives no meaning to me. I also wasn't raised around family. I was raised by a single mother pretty much my entire life.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like every Thanksgiving we have all of our family come by. Every Christmas it was me and her. And so it wasn't a thing that I was raised around a family. So it's easier for me to have these sit downs and talk to my mom, talk to my dad. Like the day I was baptized, I call my dad. And I'm like, hey, because I know he grew up a very religious person as well. He didn't have a huge effect religiously on me growing up, but that was because he was actually trying to let me come into it myself. But for him, he's an addict. He's an alcoholic. And especially since becoming an adult, he's gone through a lot of sobriety issues and stuff. But I still remember to this day, I got baptized, and for me, it was a life-changing event.
Yeah.
I was like, I never thought in a million years this would ever be my life. So I called him. I'm like, hey, Dad, guess what? I got baptized. I was expecting, like, oh my gosh, well, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. His response was, why would you do that?
I got baptized recently, and I was baptized when I was little, but it wasn't really like my choice thing.
Yeah.
And I told my family that I got baptized, and they were like, you're only supposed to do that one time. And I was like, okay, you know what? This conversation is void right now.
Yeah. And it's those kinds of things that I'm like, says who? I mean, the baptism is the washing.
I'm like, you don't know what I walked through.
Yeah.
Like,
I had a friend that has been baptized, I think, 2 or 3 times now. And as long as it's for the right reason and stuff,
Yeah.
then awesome. But it was that fact of like, I stopped talking to my dad for a very long time because of that. And I had to wait until he came to the realization of, I'm sorry that I reacted that way. You're doing something to grow yourself as a man. And I disrespected that. And I'm sorry. And I had to wait for that.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to wait for him to come to terms and stuff because I wanted to be like, come on, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I had to wait for him to realize his own mistake of like, I'm not doing this because my parents forced me into it. I'm doing this because this is the healing journey that I've found. Ironically, and I've mentioned this too, my mom, who was the pagan and stuff, is now the most religious, diehard Christian I've ever met.
No way.
And it's really weird too with my brother because my brother grew up with that woman who was anti-Christian.
Yeah.
And me and her had no connection. I pretty much exiled her from my life for a little while based off of the healing I needed to do away from her. We had a very toxic relationship growing up. Not long after me, I remember, like, to the T, I was in my room on the phone with her because I'm like, I'm still going to talk to her. I'm not going to just not ever talk to her again.
Yeah.
How am I ever going to know she's healed if I don't ever talk to her? But I remember I was on the phone with her and she was like, yeah, and I thank God for this. I'm like, whoa, pause, like, time out.
Time out.
I'm like, did you just mention God? And she was like, yeah, no, I've been going to church. I'm like, since when? This is coming from the woman who punished me for going to church, from the one who used to debunk every Christian thing known to man.
Those are always the people who end up having the strongest faith ever.
And I was like, okay. And that alone, it healed our relationship a lot because now we had a similar thing to be able to talk about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it kind of like she's gone her own way with it to where it's like she's more Pentecostal than Christian. And not to say there's anything wrong with anything like that, but for her, like, I would come to her and say like, hey, by the way, I'm in therapy now. She didn't like that. She was like, well, is it like is it someone at your church or is it a Christian therapist? I'm like, well, no, but they respect my beliefs and stuff. And she was like, I mean, you do you, honey. But I'm like, like, and that's where it comes in for me, that like balancing something like faith with everything else. Mm-hmm. Not to say that faith itself is not what to believe in, but still being able to balance everything, being able to balance science and faith, being able to balance regular psychology, medicine, and faith. Like, there's faith, but then there's going too far into faith to where it's like, I don't go to doctors, I don't go to anything because I believe that God's going to heal. It's like, God never promised that he was going to heal us of everything like that. You can't catch the flu. And
there's a reason why he gives us doctors and medicine and all the other things.
And that's where I have to, like, not once does he ever say, if you catch cancer, if you are diagnosed with cancer, I'm going to heal you. Do you know how many people die every single day that are of faith, who have prayed to be healed of disease and who aren't healed?
Yeah, I guess it's just seeing the perspective of, like, we don't know how God's going to use us in our story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, also accepting that, like, death is inevitable, period. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
And so you have to, like, eventually, even if you don't have faith, be at peace with that. And if you do have faith, like, again, bad things happen, blah, 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 all these things. But it's kind of that perspective of free will. Like, everyone has free will. Sometimes bad things happen because we are running, right? We're running right into sin. We're running right into this or that. Or, like, people get diseases and whatnot. There are some things that obviously, like, are not godly. But that's where you start to understand that there's where that free will comes in.
And I remember there was actually 2 movies too. So after I went to church for that first time, I got curious. I was like, I've always had a weird thing about not being gullible.
Okay.
I grew up a very gullible child. I grew up someone that, like, I believe anything that anyone tells me. But that's where I had to question myself. I'm like, what do I believe in? Yeah. I believe in what, unfortunately, school has taught me. I believe in what society has taught me. And I'm like, okay, well, and I had to, like, really go down the rabbit hole. Okay, well, what are they teaching me? They're teaching me from this history book. Okay, well, where is the citations from this history book? Dating back it's all based off of hieroglyphics, of old scrolls, all this. And I'm like, well, that's what the Bible is. It's literally journals and scrolls and stuff of human stuff. And so going through that, and then there's 2 movies that I watched that help me answer questions, because obviously as someone who's new into faith, you're going to have a lot of questions. Well, why did this happen? Why did this happen? They claim evolution, they claim this, like, how can you debunk these? That was one of the reasons why growing up I personally decided not to go with faith, because I was like, every time I try to ask a Christian why this, their thing to me is just have faith. And I'm like, you cannot tell somebody that doesn't know what faith is to have faith.
Yeah.
They don't know what that is. That's
Exactly.
like telling someone to find an orange that's never seen an orange before.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means when you're telling me just have faith. I'm like, what the F is faith?
Yeah.
You're telling me to have this thing. Like, you're telling me to believe in some fairy tale.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so that was one of the reasons why, like, I'm like, I need questions answered.
Yeah.
I need to be able, like, the thing, like, these plants, these leaves and stuff that I have of the reasoning I have now is based off of the roots that I've been taught. I need something else to attach these things to. I need reasoning behind this so that I can justify in my own brain of, like, it's okay to believe in this, because I grew up a very gullible kid that's believing in this. You know how many times something's like, oh, I can't believe you believe that. Why would you believe that? Like, you know physics, you know science.
You believe we're a monkey? I'm just kidding.
I believe in the Neanderthal thing. I believe, like, Adam and Eve could have been Neanderthal type of beings.
Yeah.
Maybe that we weren't from apes.
Yeah.
But that the whole terrestrial of a Neanderthal, of being that in between of, like, the caveman.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe that Adam and Eve look like me and you.
Yeah.
I think that happened over a couple thousand years of evolution. Like, I believe in evolution, the fact of, like, over time we have to evolve to adapt to our environment.
Yeah.
Blue eyes is not a trait that was around at that time. Brown eyes were, like, the original thing, and I believe in things like that, to where, like, based off the product of our environment, skin color changes, hair color, texture, all that changes based off the environment that you're in. But there's one movie called The Case for Christ.
Okay.
Completely free to watch. I do encourage anybody, whether you're a Christian or not, to watch it, because it's a story of a man it's a complete true story. He was a journalist working for a newspaper who is an atheist. And there was an event that happened that turned his wife from atheist to Christian. And so he had 2 options. Either divorce his wife and say she's crazy and go on his own way, or debunk her religion and be able to prove to her that what she believes in is false. And so as a journalist and someone who goes through studying and stuff, he goes, and, like, this is before internet, before all these kinds of things, just Googling stuff. So he had to travel to all these different places, go to all these different things, to be able to find the information of, okay, well, why is this in the Bible? Why is this happening? Why is this going on? Show me these scrolls. Show me these things. Show me this.
Yeah.
And this is what he did. He traveled to, like, I think he traveled to, like, Jerusalem and stuff. He traveled to all these places to get, like, word of mouth of this, to actually see these scrolls, to actually see these things of, like, this is written in this language, but it's been interpreted in these. And it's his journey of going from atheist to now he's a pastor.
That's crazy. I just got such bad chills.
And then the other one, I know it's a little bit more Hollywood-ish, but God's Not Dead. The original.
Have you ever watched The Chosen?
I started watching a little bit. Okay. I'm a little bit pickier on like shows like that.
Yeah. I watched the first season, and that was all. Yeah. I liked the character development. Mm-hmm. Because now when I read my Bible, like it
kind of gives you something to be able to play like a movie in your head.
Yeah, a little bit.
But the thing I liked about God's Not Dead, I know it's kind of like a little bit more of a Hollywoodified type of thing, was he goes through the argument of atheism versus Christianity, of why they talk like, okay, well, Isaac Newton, who is an atheist, talked about this. Mm-hmm. However, if you go into more of what he said, he debunks his original thing, saying, like, even though this is what I originally thought, the evidence clearly shows this, therefore making this null and void. Yeah. And so he debunks all of the original stuff, and he goes into, like, this is what we believe. Yeah. Correct? Yeah. Okay, cool. Did you know this is also what he says, just later in a passage that's not popularized, saying that this is not correct, saying that he's even saying that this is what he wanted to believe. However, there's not enough evidence to support it.
Yeah.
And so it was those kinds of things, talking about evolution, talking about all these different types of things. And like I said, it's not to say that things like evolution don't exist. It just, I personally feel that we're still in such a discovery mode, we can't specifically say everything that has happened.
Yeah. Well, also, it's like some of this stuff was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
We have to understand there are things that we will never have answers to.
Exactly.
And because I've done psychedelics whenever I was 19, I have this thought where like you sit here and you think, what are the chances of anything actually, right? That we're on a planet revolving around a star where it's the perfect amount of heat, where we can have life, where we can have water, where we can have food, where we can breathe. There's bacteria here, there's all sorts of random life. What are the chances that you and I, a human, like the consciousness that we have, even exist and life even exists?
I did read some stuff into that. The probability of it happening is such a small number, it's incomprehensible.
And so to that extent, we'll never have that answer.
Yeah.
So even if you aren't Christian and you don't believe in anything, is God really that far-fetched?
That's where you do have to kind of think, like, even like Big Bang Theory, the show, right?
Oh yeah, like how does that? How do two nothings that do not exist?
No, the show, The Big Bang Theory, the sitcom.
I thought you were talking about the actual theory. I'm like, that's always been sketchy.
That's always been like a big thing. But the show Big Bang Theory,
yes,
there's the spinoff of Young Sheldon, and there's a specific episode that it came across my feed not too long ago of the younger version of Sheldon, who his mom is going through a kind of faith crisis herself. He sits her down, and this is a kid that's atheist. Like, he's a classic scientist, someone that purely just believes in physics, science, all that kind of stuff. He sits her down, and he's like, did you know that with gravity, it has to be a very specific amount not to throw us out of orbit, not to crush us indefinitely, not to do all this. It has to be such a specific amount to allow life to happen.
Yeah.
And like he's giving all these statistics. He's like, to believe that there isn't a supernatural or super intelligent type of being or creation is something that is improbable.
Yeah.
And she was like, why are you trying to tell me that God exists? He's like, I'm not trying to tell you that God exists. I'm saying that even science can't really define the existence of everything. We can create theories. Right. But because
we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because
let's go with that.
Well, that's what humans are. We want to make sense of things. We want to have, and that's what like obviously school teaches us. School teaches us that like Big Bang Theory, single cell organisms to all these, and it's like,
okay, but like, at the end of the day, like a single cell organ, like how is that even?
And like when you talk to like an actual evolutionary biologist, you're going to debunk them at some point of like, okay, well, how is this then? Yeah. How are you going to explain this? Or like, there's just so much that goes into all of it that's why I tell people I don't care.
All you have to do is just keep saying, but why?
Yeah. And
then they'll go down another, and then, but why?
And then eventually,
but you can
for
do
them,
that to Christians too. You can do that to Christians.
Christians
too.
have the answer to the but why, which is faith, which is I don't know, but I'm not meant to know. Then that's what usually like when people ask me, I tell people like I don't personally know. You can talk to a pastor, you can talk to someone like that. I don't believe that we're supposed to know everything. No. I don't believe that we're supposed to be in a.
We weren't supposed to eat the apple in the garden.
Yeah.
Period.
So in those kind of instances, like you're maybe not supposed to know all this kind of stuff, but that's where I do tell people like the journey of healing comes also from making yourself bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Thinking of outside of yourself, being able to not think of the world revolving around you, remembering that you're a speck in the garden, remembering that you are one of the biggest like one thing out of this giant thing. And that there is a purpose for you, though.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a purpose for anyone who actually wants the Lord to use them.
Yeah.
I think, I think there's passions. I think like we're all gifted in certain ways. And I think that's really beautiful. Like example, like I could not be a doctor. I think God really puts that into some people. But to say that every person on this planet is going to make a difference, that's just not going to happen. I think you have to choose yourself, and then God works from there, and he works whatever your passion is or whatever and uses it.
And like I said, I'm not saying this to where you have to believe in God or be a Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very strong in my faith, and so that's
good that you're strong in your faith. I'm saying all this in the fact of the biggest healing that I've seen from people are those that choose something higher than themselves.
Yes.
And that's like even with atheists that I've seen, like those who go through AA and stuff, they tell you can choose either to put your faith into something or someone. You can choose
that's back
make
to what
the
I was
gym
saying earlier.
your addiction,
Yeah.
or make the addiction your faith.
And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said humans are made to worship something or idolize something.
We're
Like
dopamine chasers. It's
Yeah.
literally, when you think of it in the scientific way, humans are dopamine chasers, but we also are reasoning chasers. We need to believe that there's a reason for something happening.
Yeah.
We can't just sit there and be like, I mean, this is happening, but I don't know why. Cool. At least for me, I can't, like, I need to know why something's happening, which that's literally how the rabbit holes get started. People are like, they see a headline and they want to know why something's happening, so they go within the headline, and there's cause and effect. It's literally just how our brains are meant. But no, it's really refreshing. Like, I didn't know that faith had changed your life that much. I know it's changed my life, and even though I'm not as hot of a Christian as I used to be, it's still like I still consider myself Christian, but that's also where I took that step of separating religion from faith.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like it definitely is a relationship.
Yeah.
Versus like a religion. Yeah. Like everyone interprets things differently and whatnot. And I know like my path and like where I'm being led.
Yeah.
And like you have your own relationship with the Lord, and you know where he's leading you, that whether it is an up and down, like strong, it is a relationship. Like I definitely have had seasons again where I was either removed from faith or had very little faith.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but that's, I do love to hear about, like, I know it's kind of hard to talk about some of these rough seasons, but I think that's where people relate to the most, especially in times like this, to where I know with politics the way they are, with religion, with the world, with the economy, the amount of people I'm seeing on TikTok, like there's
depression, anxiety, like the way everything is nowadays is just like
it's insane. And that's where I know a lot of people are also like, oh, this is a sign that like Jesus is coming. We don't know when Jesus is coming.
No, that actually drives me insane.
And that I feel like also kind of gives people excuse to do stuff. Yeah. Because I think
for me, that would make me want to be like, oh, I'm not being perfect. Yeah. Jesus is coming. I better be perfect now.
But the way I also kind of look at it is we're still not technically in as worse of a position as we could be. Yeah. You think that they weren't saying this stuff during the Great Depression? Yeah. During when
what are they seeing in other countries that have collapsed? Yeah. You know what I mean? But like to America, this is the end of the world, but like...
And it's the end of the world because this is the worst that we've seen in our lifetime. Yeah. But if you backpedal centuries ago, I mean, during the times of slavery, during the times of just all these different times in life, like I said, the Great Depression and stuff, I can guarantee you that people were like, this is the downfall of the world because everything is happening. This is when Jesus is about to come. Obviously, we're still here. Yeah. There's so many different theories and stuff, but like even the stuff like the Mayan calendar, 2012, 2020.
I remember 2012. Yeah. I was so scared that day.
Oh, I was terrified. I
think we were probably in middle school or high school. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like I'm 12. Like at that time, I think I was like 12 or 13. I'm like, I'm gonna die.
I was sitting on the slide.
Yeah, I'm
you know,
like, oh my
I was like,
gosh,
when's it gonna happen?
You're at your like hugging your friends, like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. Like, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry I did this to you. Like, I'll see you on the other side and stuff. And we come to school the next day. I'm like, so
What'd you have for dinner last night?
But it was the same thing with the thing with 2000, but because we thought that all the computers were gonna do all that, like all these world-ending things, and that's where I'm like.
And now we're getting robots, thanks Elon Musk.
I know.
I'm low-key terrified, but kind of want one for my laundry.
I just watched iRobot for the second time, and rewatching that with a new perspective terrifies you even more because you get to see how close we are to that actually being a thing.
I just don't understand. It's like there's got to be a line. Humans need to understand at some point we need to stop.
Well, and like even in that movie, you see all these robots taking the jobs and stuff of people. Like like the robots are now the new mailmen, the garbage people and stuff. And I'm like,
it's
the
like
population
WALL-E.
isn't going to go down.
Have you seen WALL-E?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's just going to get fat.
Yeah. Like I saw the new thing with Elon doing the robo-taxi thing that they're about to be launching.
Yeah.
With completely autonomous driving. And I'm like, those are the things that do kind of scare me.
They kind of scare me. But it's also fear of
life.
the unknown. Like for all we know, this could like limit car accidents. This could actually make the world maybe a better place. Me trying to over here be positive a little bit.
Yeah. Which is it's
maybe
good.
The robots, they'll have like this thing that we can press if they go rogue, and it won't end up like Star Wars. I don't know.
I just tell them like, there's movies about this. Watch those movies before you invent something. Because
I think they have seen them. I'm pretty sure they have.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you be like, you know what? That sounds great. Let's do it.
Right. So we are at.
We've been talking for a while.
Yeah. We're at the point of an hour and a half already. So we're going to do 2 of these instead of 4 of these.
Okay.
So these are just questions that, like, just deep questions that I just randomly, car thoughts or whatever, that I just want to ask people. Do you struggle with feelings of jealousy? And if so, how do you manage them?
I used to. I think I really used to until I became rooted in who I was. I think jealousy was whenever I had a low self-esteem, and I think it was whenever I was trying to be other people and idolizing other people instead of just being okay with who I am and knowing that's enough.
That's still something major that I deal with. Like, I will say that's even a big thing with Brian.
Yeah.
Maybe
I am a little jealous.
Like, the amount that I've compared myself to people like Brian, that I realize that it just destroys me with all that. And like, I've even had him on the podcast, and I'm like, did you know that I have been jealous of you for the last 2 years? Everything that you I literally told him, like, I had to unfollow you. I had to completely delete you.
I had to unfollow you.
I had to delete everything from him because every time I was looking at his story, I would say, why can't that be me? Why can't I be doing that? Okay,
maybe I am a dream chaser for sure. So I think if jealousy comes anywhere in my life, I got started on life late and pursuing things in my life late, so I feel really behind.
Which, it's funny that you say that because you're not even 30.
I turned 30 in 2 months.
The fact that, though, that you're saying that you got into things late and you're still technically in your 20s, that's a big thing right there.
Yeah.
That proves a lot in the fact of what our mindsets are about timing. I actually had a talk about this with another friend of mine when I was on a photo shoot, and I was like, we're at the point to where 30 is the new 90. We think that we should be retired, completely free from all this, and millionaires by the time we hit 30.
Yeah.
That's the society that we live in. And like this, I was talking like a 45-year-old mom, and she was like, well, I'm definitely not. I'm like, that's what my generation is, though. We're in a generation that our lives are ending when we're 30, that we should be settling down and living the retired life by that time. Which, in retrospect, is the stupidest thing ever, because we, on average, live between 70 to 90 years. We're barely a third through our life. True. Even if we were to retire at 40, we still have a good 10 to 15 years of whatever we want.
True.
And as long as we take care of our health, and take care of our, like, I've known 70-year-olds that are more active than I am now.
Yeah.
And as long as we take care of ourselves like that, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to enjoy it. It's only those people that we see that don't take care of themselves that aren't able to enjoy it. Like, oh, I wish I would have got this success when I was younger because I would have been able to enjoy it. You look at people like Joe Rogan, who's almost 50 or 60. He's literally the most active person I've ever seen. He's training every single day, doing these insane workouts, doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what pisses me off about our minds. Like, when you were like, I started and stuff late, I'm like, you're not, even if you're starting now, you wouldn't be late.
Yeah.
There's the average millionaire. I don't think, I was reading a statistic, the average millionaire, like, obviously we see social media and all these kids are like, oh, I make $10,000 a day doing this, blah, blah, blah. It's still, I think 47 is the age for becoming a millionaire.
I'm fine.
Yeah. It's just, we see on social media these stories, and we don't even know how real they are, but all these things, like, obviously, we know Brian's very successful, but he's still very young. He's going through his own ups and downs and stuff, but, like, I do know kids that are in their 20s that are millionaires.
Yeah.
But the sacrifices that they've had to make for that.
Also, like, I feel like depending on who you are and when you're that young and you have that kind of money, like, it can do a lot of damage to you too. It can.
I've seen personally the damage happen from those people, because it's like, money is a tool and it's an amplifier. It's going to amplify whatever you already are. If you're naturally a selfish person, you're going to be like, there are very depressed millionaires and billionaires, but there's also very happy ones. It depends on what you do with that money. It can change your life for good, for worse. There's lottery winners that will get a lot of money and it ruins their life, but there's other ones that are like, actually, I used it and I helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing of, like, that's why I tell people, like, money should never be your goal. It should be the byproduct of whatever your goal is.
Exactly.
But it's good to know that other people also, because a lot of people are in that, like, I know for me, I don't feel like other people struggle with envy. Obviously, it's something that everyone struggles with, but it's like, it's such a powerful feeling that I feel like that needs to be talked about more, especially with social media and the day and age that we're in now, with people trying to show off whatever cool status they have or cool thing, and then you meet them in person and they're like, oh no, I just do that because that's a clout.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other question is, what kind of routines have you developed yourself?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So every morning I take my girls where they need to go, and then if I have time, I will get a quick workout, and it just depends on, like, traffic and everything. And then I actually read my Bible at a coffee shop right before I go to work.
What is your job now? I know you
I work in leasing right now.
Okay, because I know you said you got a new job, but we never.
It took me a year. It took me a full year of being at the coffee stand, because the thing is like, that was my longest standing job.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're putting a resume out there and that's like your longest standing
They're
job,
a little apprehensive.
They don't give you many interviews. I'm gonna be honest about
Yeah.
that. So I was really lucky. But yeah, I work in leasing.
Okay. So that makes sense, because I was like, how do you have time to go work out, do all this beforehand? But I mean, that's probably,
It depends on
like,
my schedule that day. But yeah.
I'm assuming then you probably wake up at like 5 or 6.
Yeah,
right?
I wake up at 5:30 most mornings.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because I was like, that kind of job, you probably have to be there between 8 and 10.
Well, it just like, for the most part, yeah. But like, I have to have the girls where they need to be by 7.
Okay, so you have like an hour or something to kill.
Yeah.
In between time, so you can go to a coffee shop for a half hour or 45 minutes or something. Do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very strict with that particular part. I feel like that's the part of my day that I can control. After that, it's kind of is what it is, depending.
What about wind down routines?
Winding down routines. That is called, I put them to bed, and then I maybe relax for a little bit, and then I usually fall asleep because I'm exhausted.
Okay. Those are things that I need to start doing better for myself.
I think your morning habits determine your day.
Absolutely.
I think that's more important than your winding down routines.
Oh, absolutely.
So
it's how you start your day is going to affect the entire rest of your day, which is going to affect your night and stuff.
Yeah.
So Well, Kate.
This was
Wow.
actually really fun.
Yeah? Good.
Yeah, we talked
You
a
said
lot.
this is your first podcast, so hopefully it was a good experience for your first podcast.
It was, except we forgot to press record.
I know. Honestly, though,
We've probably been here for 2 hours.
even with
I'm
forgetting to hit
hungry.
record, we're an hour and 45 minutes in. So I don't think it's a big deal.
I don't think we're lacking.
No, absolutely not. Like, even if we didn't talk about that stuff beforehand,
Yeah.
it's still, we're at an hour and 45 minutes.
We'll figure out how to chop it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Kate. Is there any
Yeah.
specific messages that you want to make sure gets told or heard or seen before we officially sign off?
I don't know.
Or
I'm like brain dead at this point.
Any plugs or any shout outs or anything that you want to do?
Any shout outs? Well, I mean, like, if I start shouting out, then I feel like I have to shout this person out
Okay.
and that person out.
If people are curious to learn more about you, how can they find you or reach you?
They can follow me at officially Cait on Instagram. Also TikTok. I don't post on there as much, but trying to, maybe a little. But they can reach out there if they want to be a part of like a daily devotional or anything like that. I do have my broadcast channel, which I post on almost daily. That's kind of like daily readings and has the opportunity to respond and get prayer requests and whatnot. So that's kind of something that I'm really trying to build.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kate. I appreciate it.